Now I ask that you sit, not Abby, but you, and that I ask Brian and Sue to come forward. We have something that we want to show you, and I don't know quite how to do this. Can we maybe have that tripod, the easel, thank you. And maybe I can put that up front. We want to talk to you today because the worship committee, the music staff, the session, the deacons, and strays, those of you who are strays, have all had a chance to discuss this and work on this. And I wanted to introduce a few changes. Oh, would it be better up top? I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this from there? It's a little dark. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Yeah. But what I want to do, and I know you're going to want to look at this, but I also want you to hear that when the music staff and I met, we talked about the worship service because I had already been in one or two, and I had listened to some of the guest preachers that you had that had said that it was a little awkward and difficult logistically to move around up here, especially when you had the choir coming up and the pastor or the preacher was behind and had to come around. And also difficult for the deacons in terms of having to go out into the narthex often for offerings and communion. So there were a number of things that logistically were problematic. So we put our brains together, and I remembered the Auburn Institute that came out with a study a couple decades ago that said the sanctuary space that you have should really have 25% of it be empty space. And that's in order to have fellowship and have everybody connected with one another, to have a little bit more intimacy. And so we started thinking, the four of us actually, including Bruce, came in here and looked at what might we do. So what we came up with was just tweaking a little bit the sanctuary space, and that would be to take out the first two rows, which is where the choir usually sits, put them up front, and I'll let Brian speak more to that, and take out the row right in front of Chris, not the back wall, but the one right in front where Anna is sitting. And anybody else back there? Yes. And I'll let Sue talk about that as well. So the intent of this is to free up some space for movability, but also to free up some space so that we can be more creative. I'd like to see some liturgical dance or movement that we add to the dramatizations of our scriptures, and maybe to interpretations of particular songs or around seasons, something that reflects the mood of, let's say, a birth at Christmas time, and so on. And also allows us to have communion in a way that doesn't interfere with the feet of the choir, and so on. So the idea is to free up some of this space, and I know that Doug Hamlin also said it would help him because he's in a wheelchair, and that he has a lot of difficulty moving around as well. So this would allow him the opportunity to move to a different location if he so desires, and may make us a little more friendly to those who have physical challenges. I wanted to also say to you all that one of the things, and I haven't had an opportunity yet to talk to you as a group, but I wanted to let you know that my heart is with you, and that I really want to see us free up and be creative in our worship, and be creative in our relationships as well. So my intent is not to just come in and make changes or to encourage you to make changes, But my intent is to find out what are the things that are working and what isn't working, and that's basically what we did. So, Brian, do you want to say a few words?
Good morning. So we spoke a lot also about the flow of the worship service. So if you put yourself in the form of a teacher, there's a form and there's a flow of a lesson. There's a flow of a worship service. Even when we do our cruises and our dinner cruises up on the Judge, there's a flow of that. There's also a flow of the worship service. And this is one thing that we talked about as we kind of got an idea of the space, is how can we more than through our worship service have more continuous flow as we build through the whole service itself. And Monica's been working on that. So that was the biggest drive of this, really, was the flow of the service and how it can move for us to kind of grow more as a congregation. The big part for us really is leadership role. I understand how it can be. When I was baptized, it was the old school. Remember the choir was over here? Remember the center? Remember I was baptized right over there in that corner? When I came to serve you about 3 years ago, it was a bit of a change for me, because I came into this congregation where what I was used to, and all of a sudden things were different, rows are different. Here, the choir is sitting here, the choir is not up front, which was traditional for most places. So really for me, it was kind of a time for me to kind of shift a little bit and get an idea of something different here. The big thing really for this that helps us out is really leading the worship service. A lot of different things that we can do, as she mentioned, with the choir here and kind of going up and down. Remember we talked a little bit about the pace of a lesson, the pace of a worship service, and where a worship service goes. So basically, a lot of what we talked about is the service music itself. Leadership when we do new hymns, new anthems, new service music, what the choir can do instead of going up and down kind of thing. We talked a little bit about working with communion music, that now when we do communion, if I do a new song, you'll actually be able to hear the choir. It'd be very simple and much more simple for Bruce and I to grab a guitar and Bruce to go from an organ to a piano to help with service music. Again, the focus here is on the worship service and the pacing and the movement of the worship service. We also talked about processing. You know, many times the old school used to stand in the aisles. You remember that? When I came, I liked the choir to come and process. We talked about that also as far as processing and also recessing. Right now, it's very difficult. It's not an option for us. When the choir comes back, looking forward to everyone coming and singing choir, those who are interested. Little plug. It's very difficult for us to recess and do a benediction in the back. It really is not possible. So if we have one row back there that we can, that opens up a whole new avenue for us, that we can actually go back then for an anthem. Remember sometimes we sing around the church? That opens up that possibility. It opens up a possibility again that we can recess then and do a response back there. Also do it for different seasons, you know, for Advent or Easter or whatever else. A lot more flexibility for that. And also I think it's a stronger accessibility for the choir. For some who might want to, when we come in, instead of doing a long processional, they also can kind of come just up in this area. I know it'll be new for my choir. I haven't really talked with the choir members yet about it, because we've always been sitting down here for the last 20 years now. How many years? Has it been that long? Yeah. It's been a while. So I know that's a thing too. You're so used to kind of sitting here. And that's something new also. But it really opens up the space, it frees the space up, and again, we're looking more towards the worship service and the flow of the service as we lead through parts of the service.
Good, thank you. Sue?
Sue, you're up.
Okay, some of my thunder has been spoken. I just wanted to talk about the impact it has on the bell choir. When the chancel bells are participating in worship, we need 24 to 27 feet for our tables is required. In addition, the space for the ringers to be able to move behind the tables is needed. With the present configuration, this requires using the entire width of the chancel, plus often having a table on the floor. The piano must also be pushed against... It's all about the bass. The piano must also be pushed back into the wall, which means that Brian and Bruce can't do a piece that involves piano on the days that we are going to participate. This is maybe the biggest thing that I have noticed over the years. We greatly hinder the pastor's ability to move to and from his or her seat at the beginning of the service, the pouring of the water, receiving the offertory, and when giving the charge and blessing at the end of the service. Since the bell choir is often sharing the chancel space with the chancel choir. The choir is displaced and needs to be rearranged to fit in a space remaining. While this is possible, the movement to and from these spaces can be distracting and disrupts the flow of the worship service. In studying the proposed changes, we have measured the proposed opening of the floor space in the front and the back of the sanctuary and find that both could provide possible new places for the bell choir to play from, as well as open these spaces for easier movement when we are not playing. As we often play during the offertory, this would also lessen the physical traffic to and from the tables and give the pastor a clear path to move from one part of the service to the next.
So you can't see this exactly, but in this picture, and I'm going to put one out there in the narthex and then also one in the Sims room afterwards so you can get a closer look. And this is not the be-all, end-all, because we've already, even since that was done by Andrew Pease, thank you to him, it's been clear that the piano needs to be over here on this side. But you'll see in the picture that the pulpit will be over on my left, your left, and the lectern will be on the right. And I wanted to give you a little bit of history on that. There has been a sort of, I call it the old school, where the worship service and the pulpit kind of are in sync in the sense that the main thrust of the service is the pastor giving the reflection on the scriptural word. So everything in the service, as you have had it, has built up to that, where that's at the end. And that the pulpit is central. In this new design, we, as Presbyterians, have gone through a little bit of an evolution in our understanding, and that is that we have been so pastor-focused in all of our congregations, we've seen some of the downside of that. And we've come to an understanding as a denomination that it's so much better when we are congregation-centered, and it's healthier because it means that you and I are in partnership with one another. Not just me telling you what to do, or not just me giving the word and that's the last of it, but us together working in mission, in ministry, reflecting in Bible study, reflecting even like today, having you discuss some things yourselves. And so the pulpit really needs to be one of two pieces, one representing the pastor and the lectern representing the lay people through the liturgist. In other words, you'll visually see the partnership that we're in this all together. That also makes it a little easier on the congregation when a pastor leaves, because I know this has been difficult for many of you with Craig Lindsay leaving. That it'll make it a little easier, not your hearts, but the process, when a pastor leaves, that you still have the identity of being of yourselves, of being a congregation, what you stand for, what your mission is, and what your purpose is. And that's much of the work that we're going to be doing during this interim time. So it's sort of like in any relationship where one part of the relationship ends, or you go off to college, or you go off to kindergarten, as the case may be, you find out who you are. And so you're in that phase right now. You're in a new beginning, as it were, of discovering, reclaiming the parts of you that you love and hold dear, and maybe discovering some new things. So I want to open this up now to questions. That's a little bit, we're going to be kind of in process, experimenting a little bit. Might have the choir up front, might have it down here, might have the bell choir back there or here. Any questions? Chris is going to give you a mic. How's that sound?
Good morning. Well, I do have a comment. I think it's brilliant. Having worked and served in a number of churches, I've always thought that all the people moving is kind of distracting. And I've also felt that it must be really hard on the choir when they're trying to sing the last hymn and then they all start moving. And then it just, I don't know, it just seems like this is a great way to have more seamless transitions and really opens up a place and space to be far more flexible, which I think is what worship needs moving forward. So I think it's a great plan. Thank you.
Being on the Worship and Music Committee, I believe we discussed the pews are going to remain what we have now. They're not going to be straight pews.
What do you mean?
On the illustration, it shows straight benches.
Oh, no, he just couldn't do a design where it's...
so we're going to be retaining the old ones. Okay.
Yeah, it's just his program that only does straight pews.
All right, I just wanted to sort of clear that.
It was really just for the purpose of showing the two rows out and the back one there. In the back, Chris. Oh, Peter.
I think it would be very helpful to have a kind of dimensional drawing of the floor plan from above to show what the chancel or stage area looks like. What is it before? What's it going to be now? And make a estimate of capacity. And I think for the congregation the size of it is now, it's good to have a smaller, more densely. On the other hand, for funerals and weddings and for the festival, you know, the makeup would have to probably be put chairs up front temporarily, but it would be courteous to show this to the festival as well and just get any comments that they may have. I think if the performance area is bigger, they're going to love it. But on the other hand, it could have a capacity issue. So just a kind of what is your plan from a dimensional and how does it compare?
Yeah, I'll see, when Andrew comes back from vacation, I'll see if he can do that aerial shot for you. The plan is to have this done by September 22nd. So on September 22nd, the session has approved this plan. And we're going to be, some things we're going to be working on, like the lectern. We might use the one we have in Dobson Hall, but we'll pull it in until we can find one. We're going to ask for donation. Maybe some of the churches in our Presbytery have one they want to let go of, and maybe somebody could volunteer to go pick it up if there is one. We'll have time to research the cost of some chairs. The chairs for the choir are going to be the ones, upstairs? For now, for upstairs. So we'll have we'll be working on it as we go.
We also did speak already with Steve. We already did speak already with Steve and with the festival, and we've had that discussion with him because that was one of our first concerns when we even brought this up. Our first light went off was weddings, concerts, Masterworks Chorale. What happens when this space gets used a lot by our community? We also did go to the festival and talk with them. They don't see any issue with it. He said we already bring in chairs, so he said just we'll bring in a couple more chairs. So that will be the question, and for us as we move forward, then would be like Masterworks Chorale for funerals to make sure that is talked with them, so communicated so they know to bring in things if we need to. But they do know, the festival does know.
Yes, and weddings, it'll actually be an improvement because it'll free up some space for the wedding party, so that'll help. Is there?
Did Brian address that I was going to be, I either missed it or he didn't. He addressed the choir no longer being in the two front rows, but I don't think he told people where they're going.
Basically, we're looking at a couple different configurations, and a lot of it really depends. A lot of it depends upon number one, choir numbers, and number two, just placing the thing. So you're going to see, as we move forward, you're going to probably see a couple different formations up here. You might see it kind of like a half circle. You might see it straight. You might see the chairs, the large chairs for our leadership in different places. Right now, it's anticipated to be two short half circles. It's hard to talk without my hands. So think of two large circles then, pretty much. Not facing forward. My instinct for everybody and for choir is to kind of be more of an arch so that we can hear each other and also draw you in also as a congregation. So it's kind of like a half circle. It's kind of our thinking. But it's going to change a little bit.
All right, concerns. We changed the pulpit area because what was happening, this is back in the mid-90s, because what was happening is when the choir projected, we were not hearing them, and a lot of the people toward the middle and the back were not seeing them as well. So we raised the stage so that they would be up higher, so that they would be more visible. In doing that, we did lose the permanent lower spot where they were sitting. That was the plan, to modernize the way we did our service, to make it more mobile. Other concerns we have is the capacity. We're hoping that when our permanent pastor comes, that our church capacity will increase, not decrease. And if it increases, we're losing an awful lot of seats with the new plan, so we need to go forward with that. The other concern is holidays, when all the families are here, because many of us have children that all come home for the holidays, and when that happens, we have rows of chairs here and there and everywhere, and it makes it more difficult and very congested when you start sticking chairs in. As far as handicap accessible, yes, we need to have it a little better handicap accessible. Once we move this pew from the narthex into here, we cut off that whole space for it to be easily mobile for somebody who's wheelchair accessible. Those are my comments. Thank you.
I wasn't here when the choir, when that was an issue. I know that you plan on having the choir still stand and step forward, right? They aren't going to be back, so you'll be able to hear the choir. In terms of the chairs, for weddings, for Christmas Eve, for example, or for Easter, congregations are being encouraged to, again, create more space for the weekly Sunday services. The numbers that are here, you don't really need these two front rows. And this is the majority of the year. So what we're talking about is special occasions. And some may see it like you as being cluttered. I don't know, others of you may see it as kind of exciting, you know, like for the concerts they had chairs in the aisle. I sat in one of them. And I thought it was kind of fun, actually, to be all kind of in together. But you have different opinions about that and different experiences on that, and I respect that. But we will be trying, you know, we will be taking these out and seeing what chairs could be used. There are some chairs, I will say. There was a set of chairs in the church down in Miami that I served, and they were cushioned. They were stackables as opposed to fold up, and they were cushioned, and they matched the cushions of the previous pews, and they were really lovely. You didn't have the sense of it being tacky or being tacked on. So we're going to have a little bit of time to do some research on that and see what we can find that will make it appealing to people and will fit in with the decorum here. I don't know if I answered all that. Okay. I don't know if that helps or not, but anyway. Any other questions? Any other comments? And we can take some time during the coffee hour and have some further discussion in the Sims room. Sue's going to be there, and so is Brian and Bruce as well, and myself. So please stay and join in the fellowship. Unless there's any other questions? Oh, one other.
I can't tell from the drawing. Is there still a raised platform, or is that gone?
Well, that belongs to the festival, the black.
Right.
But
so we would go back to what's normally there.
Yeah.
The festival's gone. That's not going away.
No, that's not going away.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, that'll stay the same because you need the height to be able to see. Okay? So can I send you out in peace and to love one another and to share your feelings and your thoughts and your questions with us over coffee and tea and so on. So we will now. Are you gonna do a prelude, or are we gonna? Okay. All right. That's it. That's it, folks. Thank you so much.